Hey everybody, welcome back to OneT's Garage. My name is Elliot. Today I'll be showing you how to replace the front brake pads on a 2005 Toyota Camry that you see behind me. It's a pretty easy process. I'm going to be replacing these brake pads. I'll walk you through step by step exactly what you need to do and show you exactly what tools you'll need for the job. So let's get after it. Alright, this is all the tools you'll need for this job. You'll need the screwdriver, rather large one would be nice, like this. You'll need some channel lock pliers or vice grips. Probably any pliers will work. You'll need a ratchet, any 3/8 drive ratchet will work. A 14mm socket, deep well, shallow well, doesn't really matter. 6-point preferred. You'll need your lug wrench, 7/8. 21mm, probably one or the two, maybe both. And you'll need a good solid jack, and optional is a jack stand. Also other optional equipment, if you're changing the rotors, you'll need a 17mm socket, slightly bigger than the 14mm obviously. And the C-clamp would be handy. I'll show you how to use that later, but you don't have to have it. So yeah, that's all the equipment you'll need, all the tools you'll need for this job. Pretty simple. Here's the new brake pad set. I got it from Advanced Auto, 52 bucks for tax. And you can obviously see these are much thicker than the old pads. Right here, you can see there's not much meat left, and this pad is much better. But it's a good idea to compare your brake pads, make sure they look the same when you get them. These look exactly the same, so we're good. So one of the first things you'll need to do is to remove these front wheels so you can access the brake pads. So I would recommend using a different jack than the one that comes in the car, but if you need to use the jack and tools that come with the car, just lift this up and it'll be the spare tire down here. The jack will be under here, and you just twist this and pull that jack out. I wouldn't recommend using that jack though, because I've tried it before and it's kind of the car will fall on you if you're not careful. And here's the pry bar, the crowbar, the lug nuts, and the tool for the jack. Should all be under here in the trunk, under the lid there. But like I said, I wouldn't use that jack unless you absolutely have to. Use more of a floor jack like this one, if you have access to one, or a smaller one, but something that's more stable than the one that comes for changing the spare tire. To jack up this car, right behind the front wheel, as you can see, there's a little groove up here. You can see kind of a groove. That's where you're supposed to jack it. So put the jack right under this, and that's strong enough to lift the car. If you lift it any other way, it might bend part of the body. So that's the best place to jack it, is right there. If you're just using one jack, you can jack up one side and just do one side at a time. Otherwise, you'll probably want to have a jack stand like this one. So you can prop it up on one side and then jack up the other side with your jack, so both sides are off the ground. Or you can just use one side at a time, that works too. If you want to check and see the thickness of your brake pads without taking the tire off, sometimes you can get in here, it depends on your wheel, but this one has a pretty big gap, and you can get in there and look exactly how thick your brake pad is. It's hard to see on here, but you can actually see the thickness of your brake pad at an angle, and see if you need to change it. But the easiest way probably is to take the wheel off so you can get a better look at it. So you want the wheel to be still on the ground when you take these off with your tool, so that the wheel doesn't turn like that. So we'll let it back down a little bit so it touches the ground, and then you can loosen them. And then once they're loose, jack it back up to take the lug nuts the rest of the way off. Or you can use these bad boys. Now that the wheel's off, you can get a good look in here at how thick the brake pads are. And as you can tell, they're really thin. Still got a little bit of pad left, but not very much. You can also look at the back here, see how thin they are, and you can look at the back pad from that angle. But these obviously need to be changed. They're almost done. This thing's got 180,000 miles on it, so it's about time for it. So one of the first things you can do to make this job a little easier is, once you get the wheel off, go ahead and turn the steering wheel. You'll have to put your key in to unlock the steering wheel. Turn the key on, but don't start the car, and then turn it all the way to one side, and you'll have to turn it all the way to the other side so you can work on the opposite end. But turn it that way, and then come back out, and it's turned, so it's easier to access these bolts right here and right here. Another thing you should do is take off or open your hood and find the brake master cylinder, which will be on the driver's side. It's this little plastic thing right here. Just take the cap off like this, set it aside for a minute. What'll happen is, when you compress these brakes, like I'm about to do, the fluid will get pushed back up, and you want it to have somewhere to go. Sometimes it'll overflow, but don't worry about it if it does. So just put your screwdriver in here like this, kind of in between the brake pad and the caliper, and just slowly pry. Slowly pry it so that you can press the brake cylinder. Oops. Yeah, don't slip too much. So what you want to do here is compress this cylinder right here back into the brake caliper. So just find a place to pry on the brake pad, and then slowly pull back towards you, and it'll compress that brake caliper. And you want to go as far as you can with it until it stops compressing. It'll have to be all the way back, but it'll make it a job easier when you go to put the new ones back on. Just compress it for a little while, and it should be good. So after you get it compressed, go ahead and get your 14mm socket on your ratchet. Once you got your 14mm socket on the ratchet, I'm going to put it right here. And you want to go counterclockwise to loosen it up. Do that one, and you do the bottom one. So, doesn't take much, and then they just spin out like that. Once that's out, this will come right off. Brake caliper. Probably could have compressed it a little bit more, but I think it'll be alright. Set it up here so that it won't fall. You might want to put some wire on it or something so it won't fall off. Now you can take your brake pads off. You can see I didn't have much left. Wasn't too bad, but this one is looking pretty thin. So definitely need to be changed. Might last me a little longer, but better not to wait, because if you wait too long it'll start eating into your rotor, and then you got more expensive problems. You have to replace the rotor or have them resurfaced, and both of them aren't cheap, so much better to just catch the pads before it starts eating into your rotor. So if your brake pads have started eating into your rotor, or for some reason when you put on the brakes, your brakes feel like a pulsation, or when you're going downhill and it pulses a lot, or this rotor has grooves or whatever, you'll want to probably go ahead and replace your brake rotor, which is this, or you can have it resurfaced at a shop, or sometimes like O'Reilly's or AutoZone Advance will resurface them for you at some locations. But if you want to replace the rotor, it's very easy. All you have to do is go back here to these bolts. There's just two of them, one on the bottom, one on the top, and they're 17 millimeter. And you just take that off, and this bracket will come off, and then this rotor will just slide off of your lugs. Pretty easy. So you just have those two bolts, and this bracket comes off, and you can change out your brake rotor. But today my rotors look good, so I'm not going to change them, just going to change the brake pads. So once you get your brake pads off, you might want to take these clips off. The new set comes with new clips, so I'm going to use the new clips. You can use old clips, but I prefer to use the new ones. It slides better, so that your brake pad won't lock up and have premature wear. So get the new clips on there if it comes with them. Just pop these off. Sometimes they're slightly different, so when it goes back on, just kind of remember how it goes back on. This one looks almost exactly the same, so it's probably doesn't really matter. If you forget to compress your brake caliper before you take it off, sometimes you'll need a C-clamp to compress it. So you can use a C-clamp like this, get the brake pad, and you can compress it all the way in using the brake pad. And just compress it till it stops pretty much. Probably won't have to do this, but it's good to have a C-clamp if you need it. You probably won't need it as long as you compress it with the brake, with the screwdriver. And if you forget, you can still put it back on and compress it with the screwdriver. You don't have to have a C-clamp. Well, that's one way to use the C-clamp. So once you're ready to install it, you need to put your clips back on. Just put them on here, and they should just pop right in. Make sure they're not like rubbing on the rotor or anything. They shouldn't. And put the other one on like that. Now you're ready for your brake pad. You can tell the older brake pads had these wear indicators, these little clips. You can transfer these little things to your new brake pad if you want to. That just makes a noise once your brake pad wears down to that level. These little things will make quite a bit of noise, and it'll make it more obvious that you need to change your brake pads. It'll obviously make some noise once it starts grinding metal, but these things are kind of helpful. So all you have to do is just pop them off, and hopefully you don't lose them when they pop off, like I just did. So just pop them off, and you'll want them to be on the top part of your brake pad, on the front brakes. So your pad that goes here, you want to put this one on the top, and then you put your brake pad in like this. Just kind of get them slide in there. It's a good idea to grease your slides with some silicone grease. You can just put a little bit on there. If you have some silicone grease, put it on your slides. That helps it not seize up. You put it on here too. So just kind of put it in at an angle like that, and it'll slide right in. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get both of them in at the same time, but not hard. Just gotta work with it till it goes in. Get in your home. Well, this one doesn't want to go. So kind of put it in an angle like this. And it'll slide right on. Alright, so again, this one, of course, the meat goes toward the rotor. So make sure this meaty brake pad section goes toward the rotor every time. I've seen people screw them up and put this side toward the rotor, and that is not good. It makes for noisy brakes, and it'll eat your rotor up real quick. So don't do that. So again, you want to put this little wear indicator on the top of your brake pad, like that, and then lube up the slides a little bit. Some silicone grease. And same deal, just kind of put it in at an angle, slide that sucker in like that. So as you can see, you got the brake pads on the bracket, the meat section toward the rotor. Put those in there tight like that, and then you can put this back on like that, and get the bolt started in the hole right there. Just gotta line them up, get them started good. And get your ratchet and tighten those up. So once you got your bolts started, tighten them up, and then the whole thing will start turning. So that's when you got to use your vice grips or your channel lock pliers to grip the thing behind it, the bolt behind it, so it doesn't turn while you tighten it. Doesn't have to be super tight, just real snug. So yeah, grip it in the back right here, real good. And then tighten it. And you're done with this side. Ready to put the wheel back on. So again, with this side, you're going to do basically the exact same thing. .14mm. Take off this. Pop your brake pads off. Those are pretty clean. Like that. The other clip on. Try not to force them because sometimes you can bend the little clips. Just trying to wiggle them around till they pop on. They should go on just easy, like that. So you want your brake pad to go on like that. You don't want it like that. Yeah, you can kind of see the curve. Kind of curves with your rotor. So put it on just like that. And of course, the clip's gonna be at the top, so I'll put this one on right there, and slide them in the slides. So that'll make noise whenever your brake pads wear out again. Slide these on like that. Make sure they're tight, and you put your caliper back on. Just slides on. Put these two bolts on. Tighten them up hand tight first. Get them started real good. You get your pliers, clamp that, and then tighten these clockwise so they're real snug. Same thing with the top one. So we'll put the wheel back on, and then you get your wheel back on. Go to your master cylinder. Now you can see the fluid's like right on top in there because it pushed all that fluid back up into the master cylinder. Some of it might have overflowed a little bit. That's okay. And then just put that back on, and then you're good to go. So you want to lift the vehicle down a little bit so that the wheel won't turn again. So once the wheel won't turn, then get this on there, and you want to tighten them up. You don't have to be super tight, but you want them real snug. So spec is like 100 foot-pounds of torque. So you can tighten them pretty much as hard as you can. Won't hurt anything. Just don't like hammer them or anything crazy. So just get them real tight, pretty much as tight as you can by hand with something this small. If you have a really big bar to tighten it with, don't go too crazy, or you won't be able to get them off on the side of the road later. So the last thing, once you get it off, once you get the wheels back on and you get it off of the jack stand, you get it back on the ground, make sure you pump the brakes a few times before you drive it, before you put it in gear. So just pump the brakes a few times all the way to the floor until it builds up pressure. Otherwise, like if you're on a hill or something and you go to put it in drive or put it on reverse or anything, before you pump the brakes, you're gonna be in for a scare because you're not having much brakes. It's gonna be real spongy at first, so that could cause a problem. So make sure you pump the brakes until it has a good strong brake pedal, and then you're good to go. That is all there is to this job. Alright, that's about it for my 2005 Camry brake job video. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. If it was, leave me a thumbs up. If you have a comment or questions, leave them below and I'll comment back, talk to you. If you like my kind of content, like learning how to work on your own vehicles, subscribe to my channel. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.